In the playoffs, your whole season can come down to one thing. Not your top line, not your power play, not the genius of your coach or the bravery of your penalty kill. Just whether the guy in the crease blinks. Because the puck doesn't care that you're a first-year franchise, and it doesn't care that your roster is a patchwork of expansion draft parts. It doesn't even care that your identity is basically blue sweaters, new arena, good luck. The puck only asks one question. Can you stop this? And on April 4th, 1968, Game 1 of the St. Louis Blues' first playoff series ever, Glenn Hall answered the only way a goalie can answer, by saying nothing and stopping everything. Welcome back to the Blue 100. This is episode 3. Our lens is Glenn Hall. Today, we're in Philadelphia, April 4th, 1968, the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the St. Louis Blues beat the Flyers 1-0. Today's idea? A first-year team can borrow belief from one place, its goalie. Glenn Hall wasn't just a goalie. He was a job. Like, if you were the St. Louis Blues in 1967 and somebody asked, "What do you do?" One honest answer would have been, "We employ Glenn Hall." That's the plan. Hall was born in Canada and became one of the defining goaltenders of hockey's most brutal era, the era when goalies didn't wear face masks, and shooters treated the net like a crime scene. He earned the nickname Mr. Goalie and built a reputation around something that sounds fake if you say it out loud. He started 502 consecutive regular season games, a goaltending Ironman streak that still sits in a category all by itself, nearly double the second place Eric Connell. And that streak wasn't just played some of the time. That was complete games, night after night, in the original six grind. He won major awards. He won the Stanley Cup with Chicago, and by the time expansion arrived, by the time St. Louis became a brand new team with brand new fans, Hall served as something rare. A proven commodity, not a promise, not a prospect, not a project. Just a man who had already lived through the hardest version of the position. So when the Blues hit the postseason in their very first year, they weren't just bringing a goalie to Philadelphia. They were bringing an entire standard. Here's the situation. It's the first playoffs after NHL's expansion. Suddenly, the team is bigger, the bracket's bigger, and the new teams finally have a lane. And the Blues, this brand new club, qualify immediately. That matters, because it changes what the franchise is allowed to believe about itself. A lot of first-year teams spend the season just trying to exist, just trying to not get embarrassed, just trying to build a habit of showing up. But St. Louis gets to April, and they're not playing someday. They're playing right now. And then there's Philadelphia. The spectrum is loud. The Flyers are young as a franchise also, but this is still their building, their crowd, and their moment. So what do you do if you're the Blues? You do the simplest thing in hockey. You travel. You keep it tight and don't get weird. And you lean on the one guy who's already handled every kind of weird there is. There's a line I love from a newspaper recap describing how the game played out. The writer basically said, well, Hall had an easy time, and that St. Louis didn't get the winning goal until the final 6 minutes. And that's not shade. That's the blueprint. Because easy time for a goalie isn't luck. It's structure. It's calm. It's teammates playing like they trust the back of the net is covered, even if they make one mistake. And if you're building a first-year identity, that's the foundation you want. Play like you have an adult in the crease. The final score is 1-0. And if that sounds like a boring hockey game, congratulations. Your nervous system is healthier than mine. This is playoff hockey in its simplest form. No margin, no air, no comfort. The Blues put 33 shots on goal, and the Flyers put 14. That shot count tells you St. Louis carried play, but it also tells you something else. Philadelphia didn't need many chances. They just needed one chance at the wrong moment. And Glenn Hall's entire job in this game is to make sure the wrong moment never becomes a tragedy. The first two periods were tension with a pulse. Both teams take penalties. The game has little spikes of chaos, high sticking, interference, hooking, slashing, but the scoreboard doesn't move. And that's where a goalie's presence starts to become its own kind of offense. Because when you know your goalie isn't going to panic, You stop playing like you're afraid to make a mistake. You start playing like you're allowed to keep pressing. At 14:13 of the third, Jim Roberts scores. Assists from Frank St. Marseille and Gary Saborin. And I want you to notice what that first goal does to a first-year team in a playoff road game. It doesn't just give you a lead. It gives you a new assignment. Now, you have to protect something. And protecting a 1-0 lead is where expansion teams usually learn what they don't know yet. Because it's not just hockey anymore. It's time management. It's stress. It's the feeling of your heart trying to climb out of your mouth. So how do you protect it? You play like the clock is a physical object. You keep pucks deep. You take the hits you have to take. And in the crease, Glenn Hall does the most important thing a playoff goalie can do after his team scores. He makes the next save feel inevitable. The final horn. Hall finishes with 14 saves on 14 shots. And a shutout. And yes, part of the story is that the Blues defended well. But the deeper story is this. A first-year team doesn't have a long history to fall back on. So in their first ever playoff game, they borrowed history from one man. The reaction to a 1-0 playoff win is never, "We're geniuses." It's relief. It's your shoulders dropping half an inch. It's a locker room realizing, oh, the playoffs don't have to be a nightmare. And again, the recap tone matters. That easy timeline, plus the detail that the winner came late, captures the feeling. This wasn't a fireworks win. This was a win that teaches you a behavior. Stay alive, stay patient, keep working. Because playoff series aren't won with your best moment. They're won with your ability to not collapse during your worst moment. This series didn't end on April 4th. It becomes a real fight. There are overtime games. There are swings. There are nights where the sport tries to chew you up and see if you still want it. In St. Louis, this first-year team, it keeps pushing forward until they ultimately advance. And here's the big historical stamp on the season. In the 1968 playoffs, the Blues keep winning the West and reach the Stanley Cup Final, where they lose to Montreal. But Glenn Hall wins the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. That's not a nice story. That's a goalie dragging belief behind him like a freight train. A brand new franchise in a brand new playoff format, and the most valuable player in the entire postseason is the guy I'm building this episode around. That's what Hall meant to the Blues. He didn't just stop pucks. He made the moment feel survivable. After St. Louis, Hall's life stays tied to the game, playing, mentoring, shaping the position he helped define. He's remembered as Mr. Goalie, as an Iron Man, as a pioneer, especially for that 502 start streak that still reads like science fiction. And now, we have to say this part out loud. Glenn Hall passed away January 7th, 2026, at the age of 94. This episode was already going to be about how a goalie can hold a season together. It just hits differently when the timing's like this. So thank you, Glenn Hall, for the endurance, for the example, for the calm. Rest easy, Mr. Goalie. That's Blues Episode 3. Glenn Hall, April 4th, 1968. A 1-0 playoff shutout that gave a first-year team something priceless. Proof. Next time, we're looking at Episode 4 with Red Berenson. Because Hall's in the foundation, Berenson's the part where the franchise starts to imagine it can build upward. If you're watching this sequence, keep going. If you're new here, welcome to the slowest, happiest project in sports. I'll see you in Episode 4.